how much of that is because we have the dichotomy is that why would anybody ever be in a position to have to offer 70 a kilowatt if the market can't build fast enough? And I realized within that, there are dynamics of specific markets, timing for market entry, the time between when you see a market as being ripe for opportunity, by the time you actually go to pluck the fruit, it's 2 years later and 3 years later. By the time you've raised the capital, identified a site, built a property, got your first customer in, you're on the downside of whatever boom was happening at the time in the market. And that's compounded by the fact that all of the friends that followed you into the market are adding to that very problem. But outside of, a specific market where there might be oversupply for 18 months or something, how much of that $70 a kilowatt or $90 a kilowatt is about true pressure because of oversupply versus, kind of a logical direction as capability and service offerings improve and get more standardized by the bigger players?
I think it's a very astute observation. I guess I would come at it, Mark, from this angle. I think it says more about who the money is really than what the money is, which is if you are a pension fund or an infrastructure fund for pensions and sovereigns, and let's talk about who's investing in this space now. Countries, really big, wealthy countries in their sovereign funds, and pension plans, which are either sovereign and or typically non-tax-paying, non-for-profit pools of capital, the teachers fund or the municipal workers fund. And so what they by and large want is consistency for actuarial reasons, right? If we had a 7.5% return for the next 12 years, right, our numbers foot. So they want consistency, and I think they also want a level of simplicity. I'm not sure anybody's ever been successful going to a pension or a sovereign and explaining to them how unbelievably complicated the data center services market is. And so they have agreed to invest in it in sort of the most straightforward way they can identify. So big hyperscale triple net leases. Well, again, I mean, if Microsoft, to just name a name, leased 100,000, pick a name, tractor trailers from me, that piece of paper I could sell at a cap rate because it's an obligation of a Fortune 20 company who's a AAA investment grade rated obligee. I don't know that, so I think the point being that the current capital wants a return. It wants a dividend. It wants a 7% return paid quarterly. That's the opposite of Silicon Valley, right? In Silicon Valley, they're like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to throw $100 million at the problem of people not being able to pin arts and crafts images to the same board. And in 2026, we're going to trade out of it. And in the meantime, they don't really care.
Right.
They care about a lot of key metrics: time on site, number of users, number of uniques, number of new users, number of affiliates, but they don't really care about a 7% dividend in January.
Right.
So that to me is the dichotomy here, is that a lot of this space is much more technologically complicated, much more, I'm going to say the devil's in the details, but much more, you were saying like, it's fine to say, oh, there's an oversupply of data center capacity. Well, there's probably today an oversupply of airplane capacity in America, but that doesn't help me if I'm in Phoenix and want to take a nonstop flight to Cheyenne, Wyoming. It doesn't help me at all. There's no capacity. So it's sort of the same, like if you and I needed a giant 20 megawatt data center spec in Dallas, I think we're in pretty good shape, right?
Right.
If you and I needed a 20 megawatt spec data center in Boston on Route 128 for biotech, to my knowledge, we don't have any options, right?
Right.
So I sort of think that's what it is. I think that it's like that old cartoon from the New Yorker, like that dogs and owners start to look alike a little bit, right? I sort of think the same thing is true for a provider and their capital source. Do they value consistency? Do they value dividends? Do they value growth? I mean, at least 3 of the big publicly traded REITs in the data center space, Mark, are not materially growing. And 2 of them got called out for it this quarter, and another one will. But again, maybe it depends on what their owners want. A lot of REIT owners want no dilution ever for any reason.
Right.
A lot of Silicon Valley tech startups want to fuel this race car no matter what. Those are diametrically opposed investment objectives.